Hey guys, so today I wanted to make a video to show you how to change the logic board, the motherboard, in the iPhone SE. So first of all, you want to make sure that your phone is powered off. I wanted to go over some of the tools we're going to be using today. This is a pentalobe or Torx screwdriver, size 0. And we're going to need that for removing the screws in the bottom of the phone. This is a Phillips screwdriver size 000 that we're going to need for removing the internal screws. This is a suction cup tool that we're going to be using to opening up the phone. I'll show you how that works in just a bit. If you don't have one of these suction cup tools like this, you can also use a small little suction cup like this. I'll include a link in the video description for any tools that I'm going to be using today during this process, or any parts that I'm going to be replacing. Anything that I think might be helpful to you, I'll include links in the video description, so check them out there. So first of all, what we're going to do is use our pentalobe or Torx screwdriver, and we're going to remove these two screws in the bottom of the phone right here by the charging port. So go ahead and remove those screws. So next what I want to do, if you're going to use a suction cup tool like this, what you would want to do is you want to get it just above the home button like this. You don't want to go over top of the home button because it doesn't suction very well. You want to go just over top and you want to press this down so it gets a seal like this, and then you can simply pry on the handle here and the screen starts separating here, as you can see. So if you don't have one of those tools and you have a suction cup tool like this, I would recommend using a suction tool. It's a lot easier. You can just press down, same thing, get a nice seal on there. Then you can start pulling up on this and you can see it's starting to separate here a little bit. So what I would recommend is having something like a plastic pry tool or something, and very carefully right here above the headphone jack there's a notch where you can get right in there, and just carefully at the same time while you're pulling up on the suction tool, you can just carefully work your way across here and see how that's starting to separate there, and see the notch I'm talking about right here. There's a notch there where you can get a start on it. Then you don't want to pull very far at all because there's a little cable in here for the Touch ID that we need to disconnect first. Remove your suction tool at this point. So now see that little cable in here I'm talking about? You don't want to stretch it too tight or you'll tear it and you'll lose the function for the Touch ID, so we don't want to do that. It's a little hard to show it, but this is the clip right here that we need to remove. So I'm just going to sneak in here with like a tweezers or something and just pop that out of there. It's just a little clip like this. You can pop it out of there. Then also, I would use something plastic, nothing metal for this part. You want to go in and you want to disconnect that connector right there. And then it pops loose like that. Then once that's loose, we can go ahead and pry this up all the way. Now don't go past the 90 degrees at this point. Then what we want to do is use our Phillips screwdriver, size 000, and we're going to remove these 4 screws in this shield right here. Also, make sure you keep these screws in the right order when you take them out so you know how they go back together. So then grab this shield, set it off to the side with your screws. Then don't use anything metallic for this. I would recommend using something plastic or your fingernails or something. Let's go ahead and start removing these connectors, starting with the one that's on top, which is this one. Then next the one right underneath that, and next the back one there. There's 3 different connectors that we need to remove. These 3. Then the whole LCD screen comes out just like that. So next what we're going to do is use a Phillips screwdriver size 000, and we're going to need to remove these 2 screws in this cover right here. You want to make sure when you take these screws out to make sure to keep them in the right order. And we're going to carefully pry up on this plate right here. We're going to set it off to the side with our screws. So next what you want to do is use a SIM eject tool or a pin or something. Go ahead and remove the SIM card tray. So next, using a plastic pry tool, we're going to need to remove this connector right here. You can use your fingernail for this too, but I would recommend something non-metallic. Then we're going to need to remove this connector right here as well. And using something fine, you need to get down in here and remove this antenna wire right here. Just pop it off. So then this can get peeled back. Then moving to the top, we're going to need to remove this little piece right here. Set that off to the side. We're going to need to unclip on the side here this dust cover for the rear camera. We're going to need a plastic pry tool or your fingernail or something and remove this connector right here for the rear camera. Then we can just grab and pick straight up and the rear camera comes out. Next we can remove this connector right here as well by prying up underneath it. Now we are going to need to remove a wide variety of screws here, so make sure to keep these screws all in the right order as you take them out. First of all, we're going to use the Phillips screwdriver and we're going to remove this screw right here. Since we still have the Phillips screwdriver, let's go ahead and remove this screw and this screw right here since they're Phillips. Next, we're going to need to use a little flat screwdriver, and we need to remove this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw. So let's go ahead and use a little flat screwdriver and remove those. So next, now that we have all those screws out, what we can do is just carefully pry up under this corner right here. Now you want to watch because there's still a connector attached right here, so we don't want to just lift out of there too much. Now this wire here can just go out of the way. Under this little metal part right here, we need to pull straight back while we're still down pretty straight. Pull straight back to pop out from under that, and then we can flip this over carefully. Then there's a connector right here that's attached, so we just pop that loose. And the whole logic board comes out just like that. So now I just wanted to say something really quick. If you're swapping out your logic board and you want your Touch ID to work, you're going to also need to swap out your Touch ID button. Hopefully, if you can find this motherboard pulled out of a used working phone or something, I'll include links in the video description where I find them for the best price. And the availability comes and goes. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. It all depends on if somebody's parting out their phone or what. But what I would recommend is getting a motherboard paired with the Touch ID. They come paired from the factory, and if you change the motherboard without changing the Touch ID, then your Touch ID won't work. Your home button will still work, but your Touch ID won't. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's pretty simple to swap out your home button as well. You just need to pull this screw right here. It's a Phillips screw. Then you need to pull the 2 screws that are underneath it in this metal plate. And you can just slide something like your tweezers or something underneath there. And this part here just has adhesive under it. You can just flip that up out of the way. Then coming from the front side, this just has a rubber gasket under it once you get this plate off. And you can just push a little bit to get it started and get it out of there. And then it'll come right out of there. So to reinstall your logic board, what you need to do first of all is you need to get this connector hooked up right here. It's a little tricky to do. So once you get that connector hooked up underneath there, then we can grab our board. What we need to do first is we need to slip under this part right here. And then we need to make sure that there's no connectors under here. This connector right here likes to slip under there, the one that goes right there. So we need to slip down past that as we set this down in here. Make sure that it sets down nicely with no resistance, because that tells you whether there's something underneath there. Then we need to bring this cable back around and carefully tuck it down in there. You can see right where the screw lines up there. Then we can go ahead and put all our screws back in the way that we laid them out. Now that we have all our screws back in, remember the Phillips goes here, flat one here, Phillips here, flat here, Phillips here, flat here. Sometimes what you can do with these flat ones is you can start them with a Phillips because that keeps them more stable to get them started. Then you can finish tightening them with a flat. Sometimes that helps, just a little tip there. Then let's grab our rear camera, set it down in there. Let's go ahead and reconnect that. Then we want to hook up the dust shield. You kind of have to pull it down and then push it in to hook on those little pieces there. Next, we'll also want to grab this black tape and set it right down in here. Let's reconnect this connector right here. Make sure you can feel it kind of snap in. Let's go ahead and stick this down. Reconnect that and stick it down. Let's leave this battery for right now. Let's grab this antenna wire right here. Once we get that hooked in, make sure that this wire is in its channel right here. Let's put our SIM card tray back in. Then lastly, let's go ahead and reconnect the battery. Next, grab the shield to set it right down on here and put your 2 screws back in. Next, we want to grab our screen and we want to set it down on here. Let's start by reconnecting this first connector right here. You can kind of hear it and feel it snap in. And we want to do them in order, the way that they're stacked. So let's go ahead and reconnect this connector right there. And then we want to reconnect this one right over here. Now while holding the screen at a 90 degrees still, don't pull it too far back so you don't strain the connectors too much. Then we want to grab our shield and set it down in here. So while still holding the screen with one hand, we need to get these screws in here to put this shield back on. So next, now we've got all our screws in the plate right here. What we need to do is carefully set this screen down all the way. And what we're going to attempt to do is reach in here and grab this connector right here. Don't pull too hard. We're going to kind of set this off to the side like this. And we're going to carefully try to reconnect this. There's just enough slack in this cable that we can reconnect this right here. Then also what we need to do is just put this retainer clip on here to hold this connector down in place. The 2 holes go this way and the one piece goes this way. The little tongue goes down. And you can just push that down and that snaps right in there. Next, what we want to do, we don't want to pull this up too far so that this cable pulls off again. But what we want to do is try to get this top in first like this, while it's still held at an angle like this. And then what we can do is just carefully set this down. As long as the top stays in tight like that, we can just set this down and start pressing down all the way down. As you can see, that's in all the way there. Then we want to put our screws back in the bottom here. You can do this with your fingers if you want. I'm just using a tweezer so it's easy to see and so it's easy to grab. Then we want to take our pentalobe screwdriver, put these screws back in. Then we want to power on our device, and as soon as it comes up, we know everything's working and you're all set. Thanks for watching.